Evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order of May 9th, 2022. It'll be Planning Commission / DDA. If I could get a roll call from Secretary DeWall.
Yep, Schenkel. Yucha.
Present.
Rotella.
Present.
Holmes.
Here.
Cox.
Here.
Manchester. DeLong.
Here.
Newman.
Here.
DeWalt.
And
Is
Kent,
there anybody in back that you know of?
not that I know of, sir.
Okay, I just got stung by a bee and I used to be allergic. Haven't had an issue in years, but it's only been 5 minutes. I don't wanna,
Do you want me to call 911 or
well, I was hoping people were here, just give me a
there?
shot. But
None of us are medically trained in that. We're doing a planning commission meeting, but I'll be happy to get you emergency
let's wait
services.
till I turn blue, okay?
Well, come to me before you turn blue and we'll make that call, all right?
Well, yeah. I'll just sit here and watch, but
Okay,
I haven't gotten stung in a long time.
all right.
So it's fine.
We just need to, and it's recorded on, going live streaming, so we're gonna start the meeting, okay?
What?
We're gonna start the planning commission meeting, if that's
I'm
okay.
going out there, okay? I'll let you know if I start choking up.
Okay.
Can you delete this part?
Approval of the agenda.
A couple, is, just so the record reflects that, Tanya DeLong is remoting in, as well as, Chairman Schenkel, sent a message that, he, would not be able to attend tonight's meeting, and put that on the records.
Jim, on that note, what is the policy and procedure for remoting in for board members?
They just can't, they can participate, we have nothing on the agenda that's a voting action except approving, but you can't place a vote by remote, but you can participate.
Thank you. Anything else?
Hmm?
Anything else?
Hmm.
Approval agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda.
I'll support.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed? Hearing none? Approval of agenda. Citizen comments?
Let me, I do have to jump out of this screen share to see if anyone is. No one is on the Zoom call, at least citizen-wise, I should say.
All right, seeing no citizen comments, move on to the next item. Approval of minutes. These were sent out recently. It sounds like there was maybe a email miscommunication. So I'll entertain a motion if there is any.
Holmes, motion we approve as submitted.
Is there support?
This is Cox, I'll second.
Mr. DeBall, do you mind doing a roll call vote on that?
I think maybe Mr. Newman had some comments or
He
questions.
went, yeah.
I do. The minutes, not to fault Member DeBalton, is I know the job of secretary. Between grammar errors, formatting errors, and spelling errors, as those are presented right now, these cannot be approved to be entered into the public record. And this was my question is, with the recent hiring of a village clerk, if once the minutes are submitted by the secretary, as has been procedure in the past, that they are reviewed, formatted, corrected, and submitted to the Planning Commission for approval as a draft minutes, then once they are approved by the commission, they're entered into the public record as they come. We shouldn't have to go through and correct the misspellings of the village manager's name, other grammatical errors in these. I feel it's bad practice, it's bad precedent. And it is, I'd find it to be tremendously unprofessional. I would like to see the village clerk take on that, keeping the public minutes as part of the clerk's duties. I would like to see them, see Mr. Wines get more involved in preparing those properly for our review and approval. I appreciate all the work that Mr. DeBalt puts in to doing these, recording the meat of the information. But I feel they need to be cleaned up before they become official. That's my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion.
Just to clarify, the village clerk has not done the minutes at the planning commission meeting or the DDA, even during my tenure as village manager going back to 2016. I don't know prior to that. I was helping Ken Skippers going back to January. I'm not opposed to it. However, I want the record to clear, the village clerk has not done the minute records keeping for those two meetings when they were separate, nor since they've been combined. And again, I'm not opposed, but as village manager, I'll, see fit. The other thing is, we haven't charged off that type of staff time before to those entities, so.
I would like to address that as the secretary before Member DeBalt. I would transcribe the minutes and I would send them to the village clerk for review and formatting. And when Tracy Losey was the clerk, she would review and correct anything that needed to be done before she sent them back to us. When I started on the planning commission, the village clerk actually came and recorded the minutes. And once that individual had left, it fell solely on the body to record the minutes, but they were always corrected and returned by the village clerk before they were voted on as draft minutes to become permanent record. So that's, they may have looked like they were all done, and I made an attempt to format them in, as they had been formatted in, but they were always looked over and by the clerk for any grammatical or spelling errors.
Well, that's not the clerk's function. If the board deems and wants the clerk to participate, I'd have the village clerk just take the minutes. The clerk isn't to review someone else's grammar or spelling and formatting. I just have them take the minutes.
Further discussion on the action item, or the motion?
Tanya's raising her hand too.
Jim, I can tell you before you came, we never had anyone from the village do the minutes for the DDA. We did them ourselves. We never had the clerk take minutes or correct minutes or anything like that.
Yeah, I would agree, and by no means, again, I'm stressing, I'm not advocating to continue that, because I agree with Mr. Newman's point on the formatting would be consistent with the village council minutes in that. My advocation is to simply have the village clerk take them from the start. And
I would not be opposed to that. Like I said, when I started on the planning commission, that the village clerk actually did record the minutes for the planning commission.
And I just want the record to reflect that was 2008 or 7 or 6.
No, 2008,
Right.
2008 to 2012.
But they haven't been here since like 2013.
Yeah, and at which point I took over as secretary, recorded minutes, and submitted them to the clerk at the time, who did format them in the same format as the village council minutes, to keep it coherent, to keep everything uniform as a form of record keeping. And
Yeah.
that kind of just continued and has not in the last couple of years where we haven't had a clerk we've kind of fallen away from that, and I would like to return to that. I feel for continuity, the level of, I hate to use the word professionalism, but, we want to make sure that we're, literally dotting all the i's and crossing all the t's. And I think that from a public perception, if our minutes are consistent and concise across the board with our governmental entities, it makes us look better.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. If
so-
the board wishes, I can have the village clerk attend the meetings and process the minutes right from the start, and then present the minutes as draft minutes at the next meeting.
Like I said, I would support that 100%. Having done Mr. DeBolt's job, it's a lot, I know, to do. And like I said, I appreciate everything that you do with this. I think we can do better. So.
This is Secretary DeVault. Obviously, there's discrepancy in the minutes from this last one, so my suggestion is we table these minutes until next meeting as well, like we did 2 months ago, and I will go back over the minutes and correct the errors that are on it. So that's my suggestion. Even though it's been a motion to approve it, there's a second. We have not approved it, so we either table it till the next meeting and move on with the meeting here.
There's a motion on the table to approve the minutes as is, with support by Member Cox. Can we do a roll call vote on this one?
Mucha,
No.
Wortella,
No.
Holmes.
No.
Wait a minute, I might need Cox,
Smiley,
No.
Manchester, no. DeLong, or there's
She
not a
cannot
vote.
vote
There's not a
on
vote.
remote.
Newman,
No.
DeVault, I'm gonna say yes because I did them.
All right, motion failed.
A motion failed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 to 1. So these minutes, I'm assuming then will be tabled for the next meeting, is that correct?
We've taken no action item on that.
We've
They
taken
just
no
have not
action.
been approved. So at this time, we can entertain a motion to table them until next time. We can entertain a motion to have the village clerk review them, as Manager Mallory indicated, but however, the minutes as presented did not pass.
Well, I just want to be careful. I mean, I get an option here is we record all these and they're archived on YouTube. So the meeting from April, I can have the village clerk produce the minutes based on that accurate videotape of the entire meeting and present those minutes at the June as well as from tonight's meeting. And I think that one, as Mr. Newman, I mean, we've experienced different things, delays, whether formatting, grammar, or what. So I think from my vantage point, it would be, this is the first time we're 3 weeks into having a full-time village clerk, and if you're comfortable with that, I'll assign the village clerk to those duties.
This is Member Wortella. Member Newman, as you read through the minutes, I did not get a copy of the minutes, but the minutes, if you would enlighten us, the meat of the meeting minutes were there, correct?
The meat of the meeting minutes were there. The general concept of the meeting, ideas that were discussed were there. And I'm not as concerned about the grammar error or the formatting errors as I'm about the grammar and misspellings of individuals and words as they pertain to motions or actions that were taken. I would like those to be clear and concise and reflect accurately in their description what was discussed. If we need to have a motion to request that Mr. Mallory assign the recording of minutes of the Planning Commission meetings to the village clerk, I would make that motion at this point.
further discussion on this?
We do need a second.
Mr. Newman, if you're okay with, I think you made a motion, but if your motion can be to accept the village manager's offer, that the village manager assigns the village clerk to the village clerk duties.
Well,
And part of that would be to record
yes,
the minutes of this meeting.
The motion that I said was that we would, we can accept your offer, or we can request that you, ask the village clerk to record our minutes of these meetings. If you would prefer the motion to be,
That's fine. I heard different. I just didn't want to set a precedent that the board is making a motion to assign village staff to
no.
something. So I misheard you
no.
then.
I was
So
not.
do you see where?
I was not assigning the village clerk to record our meetings. My motion was, if this board so chooses, to request that the village manager assign the task of recording the minutes of the planning commission and DDA to the village clerk.
Yeah, I'll make the offer to
That
have
is,
the village clerk do that.
that is my motion, to request that the village manager take those steps.
Is there a second?
This is Member Wortella, I second that.
Member DeValle, would you mind doing a roll call vote on that one?
Mucha,
Yes.
Wortella,
Yes.
Holmes,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
DeBolt, yes.
Just so we're on the, so what we'll have them do, the village clerk will create the minutes from April's meeting, April 11th, as well as tonight, and we'll present those in June, and I'll have the village clerk in attendance from the meetings to do the documentation and vote as we proceed forward. Tanya's.
I have a question. I know that the motion was made and seconded and accepted, but the motion said specifically the village clerk. There may be an occasion that Christian isn't able to attend a meeting. Wouldn't it be better if it was just to accept the village manager's offer to have a staff member attend the meeting and take the minutes, instead of specifically saying the village clerk?
Well,
He can't come.
I envision it playing out like the documentation of the April minutes, as well as tonight's, will be off. We not only live stream this on YouTube, archive it on YouTube, but every machine in front of you is recording this and saving it to their hard drives. So if vacations or fill in the blank, the reason I'm still the deputy clerk of the village, it's going to be, there's only 4 of us. So it's going to be Christian or I. But we'll get it put together and then send it out as part of the packet.
Understood.
I wasn't thinking about being recorded. Never mind. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Manager Mallory.
Moving along, I believe that brings us to our village manager report.
Okay. Sorry about that. I put some papers over top of it. Well, basically, if anyone's been downtown today, got the striping in, a few more plants, mainly on Prairie and Main Street. Proceeding forward with that project. We're anticipating within the next 2 weeks, Washington Street to be repaved, or paved actually. Then Mill Street, the north half of Mill Street will be milled off, as well as Prairie towards the gazebo by Memorial Weekend, as well as repaved. So we're milling off I think it's 2 inches and replacing with 2 inches on that section. And then, then once that is complete, all of Prairie to the village limits to the west will be restriped. Washington Street will be restriped, and then the additional parking lots or parking spots. I don't have the number to memory, but between Kalamazoo Avenue and the alley on the north side of Washington Street will be striped out for on-street parking. And then between Michigan and Main Street on the south side of the street will be striped out for additional parking there on Washington. I'll pause there. That's what we've been calling the downtown infrastructure project. It is on pace to be into the 95th percentile complete by May 27th. There's a couple items that are caught in supply chain issues. Probably the most noticeable for our public will be decorative fencing that was ordered to be on Prairie Street in front of Hills Pharmacy and the blue building, Curvy's, the raised curbs there had decorative fencing coming out of it, as well as down by the Dollar General that has decorative fencing. And then the 4 areas where the concrete on Main Street goes down a couple inches, each of those have the same decorative fencing. Right now, that's scheduled to come in on July, I think it's 18th. So, and then subsequent to that, obviously installed. So the others are all components to a lift station and won't impact the operation of the infrastructure system and really are unnoticeable to the public. But those will scheduled to be in September and completed in October. So, but I'll be happy to answer any questions on the project.
Jim, this is Member DeVault. The street lights in front of Speedway, those are still not operational at this time, is that correct?
There's 4 lights that have to be installed yet, and conduit under the side, the old conduit, old wiring under the sidewalk on the north side of Prairie Street. There's an issue that they're trying to determine what the exact issue is, but correct. Did you have a question on?
It's just awful dark when it comes through, and wondered when those were going to be put through.
It's on the punch ticket list, and
Okay.
hopefully they determine the problem and are able to fix it without ripping up the sidewalk.
Jim, this is Member Wortella. I talked to you some time ago. I pressed one of the pedestrian buttons to cross the street. It was downtown, and there was no audible signal that came when I pressed that button. Is this something new, or was it there's some rewiring problems? It was supposed to. I understand it when you press that, it's supposed to give a chirping sound. So
I'm not proficient to know if that's a requirement, but it is on the list. We have a follow-up meeting. It was tomorrow at 10 o'clock that we'll bring that up. There were some other issues that have all been rectified within that system and the irrigation system. So we'll follow up if that's supposed to be making a noise and is not still.
Thank you. I just want to say that we got an excellent looking job downtown, so thanks to everybody involved.
Yeah. Any other questions on the infrastructure project? Then the other project in the DDA territory is Oswalt Park, which is progressing forward and moving on time. We have a grand opening of downtown and Oswalt Park scheduled for June 2nd at 4:30. It's a Thursday. There'll be an event on Main Street that'll be announced in the next little bit. I think it'll be probably next week with more of the details, but a pretty formal event recognizing the opening of that downtown area as well as Oswald Park. And that again is June 2nd at 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon. Besides that, in the village, it's just making sure everything in this 21-22 budget comes under, which we believe it will, but having a $12 million infrastructure project and a $400,000 barn and a $250,000 park project all close up the end of March or May, early June in a fiscal year is probably only a once in a career that I'll do that to myself. So, but it's going well. Tanya, I didn't look up. Did you have a question?
No, just, I wonder if maybe you could just, the couple of things that we talked about, just so people know about the, bike racks and about the lock on the fire.
Oh, yeah, Tanya called on some inquiries. People have noticed the fire place, the shell of it at least, has been installed in Oswald Park. That will be locked. It's not accessible when it's in operation. There'll be it's either a 12-minute or 15-minute timer, so it'll go for that length of time. And when it goes out, someone's going to have to physically walk over and push the button to get an additional 12 or 15 minutes. All of the furniture are not out in downtown, including some bike racks as well as dog cleaning stations and pots that will have annual plants in them. And the tables, the main tables on all the pop-outs were scheduled to be delivered today. I was noted, and they'll be next Monday, as one of them was rejected and they wanted to be able to deliver them all together. So rejected by the quality control of the company that built them. So hopefully we will receive them on the 16th, and then the week of the 16th they'll be placed out. So any questions to Oswald Park or?
Real quick, what is the projected completion date on that?
On Oswald Park?
Yes, sir.
We'll be over 90% by that June 2nd date. We're hoping it's 100%. Right now, the timing of delivery of the poles that will hold the overhead lights, that's questionable if it comes in at midnight on the 1st, if they can get them up by 4 o'clock. So I'm pretty confident that we'll be that close for sure.
Thank you.
Further questions for Village Manager Mallory? Seeing none, seeing no Planning Commission action items, we can dive into the Downtown Development Authority DDA Finance update.
Yeah, and again, the main expenditures at DDA financing in this fiscal year related around the fire suppression grant system, as well as $17,500 of pre-committed money to Oswald Park and an additional $9,000 that was approved by furniture. So it'll be a busy June meeting with the final amendments, or maybe just having all those invoices come in and finalize everything. So our next meeting together might be there'll be a lot more action items as it relates around to the budget. Some of the, on a positive note, we had originally, and we had made some of these announcements, budgeted, and we did a conservative coming out of the 2 years of a pandemic and not knowing where state revenue would be in that. But we budgeted around $56,000 in revenue, and it was almost $66,000 in DDA revenue that we received. Outside of the DDA, one thing that positively impacted the village was our latest census due to the increased population and the growth. We were back paid for going back to 2020, an additional $110,000 last week by the state of Michigan. That's in general fund money. But so positively, the revenue was there. And it's very healthy and it's going to be well under the budget this year. And we knew that going into it with all of the DDA territory being tore up and impacted by other revenue streams. So I'll answer any questions specific to the finances. I did want to jump to Mr. Wertella and Mr. DeBalt. So you know you were on the email distribution list on May 6th at 12:45 p.m. If you can check your home emails, and we'll work that out to make sure you're receiving emails. But you received the packet and notice at the same time the other members did, so we'll have to follow up on that. Is there any questions? All right, we'll move to, and again, this isn't looking for an action item tonight, but it's furthering our discussion. We took the input of the discussion and notes on the needs, wants, and wishes from the last meeting, along with Tanya DeLong's presentation with the subcommittee of the DDA. We had distributed a survey to all of the businesses, as well as Alex met with the majority of businesses in the downtown area to personally solicit input. So our recommendations where we sit right now are based on that data, as well as the restrictions placed on DDA revenue. As an example, and I talked to Tanya earlier today, there are excellent ideas on some kids' activities. I'll use movie in the park for kids. That you'll see that, the village residents will see that, but that'll be presented through our Parks and Rec program as that is more appropriate in there, and it would not utilize DDA revenue. So before you, I gave you each a hard copy, as well as earlier today, I emailed this out to everyone, but there's a hard copy in front of you. Right now, we are projecting just shy of that 66,000, or I'm sorry, Chris, did you have I didn't know if you raised your hand. I just caught it out of the corner of my eye. Oh, all right, no problem. So the executive summary, it lists the historic exact revenue that where we receive it. Some members might have a question as you look at the property taxes and you see 2 years in which we receive dollars from Kalamazoo County. Those dollars are related to businesses that didn't pay their taxes on time and went to the county and were reimbursed by the county. So we do not receive Downtown Development Authority revenue from the Kalamazoo County only in those situations, and that's what happened in those 2 years, 18, 19, and 2021. And a lot, our assessments are going up. The value of downtown is going up, and we're projecting that out over the next 10 years. It's also some of the things that we're analyzing on a historical perspective, how often our properties is valued, truly valued in the village of Vicksburg, and looking at some of those trends to be able to accurately project out 5, 10, 15 years, some of these revenue streams that the village can anticipate. But the core, what we're recommending is the 22-23 fiscal year village-wide is going to be kind of a bridge year coming out of COVID and an 18-month project of infrastructure and 2 other significant ones. Proceeding at the council level right now to the next stage to evaluate options in village hall facilities. But the one significant program that I'm looking forward to that I think is going to be critical to the village of Vicksburg is completely updating and revamping our master plan. That's going to be I did post that RFP Friday, gives companies till June 13th, I believe, to submit for that, but it'll be a comprehensive to first get into the master plan overall for the village, and then in a subsequent fiscal year, look at the plans of Parks and Rec and DDA after we acquire a significant data in this endeavor, to really solicit input. We've, since that input was taken in 2014, the village has grown by over 500 residents, and to capture their input on how they see the village in the next 5 to 10 to 20 year time period and get that documented will be I guess the most significant by priorities endeavor that we take on in the next fiscal year. And of course that will involve the Planning Commission. It will involve DDA input as we move forward. The significant that we're recommending based on this input and data collection that we did are in the area of grants. We'd like to stop the vernacular of facade grants and just simply these are grants from the DDA. And like everything, we looking at this as a program that will have impact not only on the building owner, but also have a public benefit as well. We are looking to submit a request for $12,000 from the Vicksburg Foundation, which they generously, and we're very appreciative, have provided for a number of years now. We would submit that in the next week, and we would find out before our next meeting if that had been accepted or not. One thing different is, and historically, prior to the last fiscal year, the village matched that $12,000 with $12,000 to make a pool of 24. We raised that to $30,000 in a fiscal year when we carried forward some village money. So we had $18,000 of village DDA money and $12,000 of grant money. We're proposing to utilize $24,000 of DDA funding with a match of $12,000, so it's a 33% match from the foundation. We're looking at recommending one grant in the amount of $15,000, two grants in the amount of $7,500, and two grants in the amount of $3,000. They're not to exceed amounts for each individual grant, with the overall total amount of dollars being at $36,000. So not to get stuck on if we've have 5 grants and approved them, that would stop the process. It would be what is the total amount of money, and our goal would be to try to create situations that all $36,000 would be utilized in a grant with businesses located in the DDA. As well as with that amount of money and the different oversight by legislation, the committee would be a formal committee would be made up to evaluate the submission of grants, and that is the village manager, the village attorney, chairperson of the Planning Commission, DDA, someone from the DDA subcommittee from the Planning Commission, and the village president. The committee then would evaluate the submissions, present the request to this board for their support, and ultimately the village council would need a vote by majority to support disbursement of the money. The last component that we're recommending is in this first year, there's a look-back option. We did not have any the only grant opportunities we made available were for building owners that were investing in the fire suppression system. And due to construction cost, availability of contractors, there are some people that make considerable investments in the downtown area that we believe would submit for a grant opportunity had we made it present. And I believe they have the understanding that that option would be available to them. So how about I pause there if people want to have comments or questions, reference DDA grants.
This is Member Newman. I would just, you clarified my one question. I was looking at the term of eligibility being July 1st, 2021. And thank you for the explanation on that as a look-back option for people that did start a project or maybe got into something or planning something at that point when the grants, the normal facade grant was not available because of the transition to the fire suppression grants. So thank you for that clarification. I only had one other question, and I'm assuming that the role of the village attorney in that committee will be to kind of establish a guideline for what would be considered appropriate. I mean, is this something that, you know, somebody says, well, hey, I need to buy $3,000 worth of paper towels so that I can have them in my bathroom for the next year. Would that be an appropriate item for this grant, or are we looking at physical improvements, structural improvements?
No, we're looking for structural investments into the buildings.
Into the building proper?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
And the attorneys there to give the expertise that they'd bring to the table.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Jim, I couldn't applaud this louder than anybody on this committee, because this is actually something that I've been recommending for the last 3 years. The idea of public and private venture coming together to address our older buildings. The one thing my research has shown for those communities, by the way, if anybody would like to see the research I've done, I'd be more than happy to share it with you, because there's other communities that have gone through this. The one thing that seemed to me that would be helpful in this situation, and I'd appreciate your comments, would be a carrot and stick approach. I see this as the carrot. We're trying to entice people, you know, to take advantage of this in order to update their buildings. The stick, so to say, and I don't mean to say that in a negative way, really would be our facade ordinance. And that is a way to new businesses. I've talked with a recent business owner, and she mentioned that she felt that there wasn't a lot of direction on that. Now, that's her opinion. I appreciate your comments on that, but it would seem to me that there'd be a balance here that if we're looking in the next 3 to 5 years of our community really having economic redevelopment, that it might be something for us to look at, and I'd be curious, you know, what your comments are on that.
Yeah, there's no local governing ordinance other than that would come out of the fire or building codes. Reference downtown, there's guidelines that are just that, guidelines that were created, but I'll just leave it at guidelines.
And actually in 2015, we did adopt the property maintenance ordinance, which does give guidelines for exterior maintenance of buildings downtown. We currently don't have an enforcement aspect of that. And I think that kind of might be where Member Holmes is heading with being able to, cracked or, visible signs of deterioration or wear in a building that could be a structural issue, being able to address those through a legal means to ensure that the buildings are maintained adequately and safely for both people inside and outside.
Yeah, a couple points on that. I have the luxury of receiving, I think, the same call. This has to do with at least the call I took, and that's where I thought Mr. Holmes was asking, was of a business coming in, looking at the front of the building, in not structurally, but looking, do they have to keep a historical look? Does it have to be painted a certain color? Can any type of plant be placed out front? What is the availability of the sidewalk? Their use of the sidewalk? And I don't know, so it's probably one of the two, so we might as well cover both. And that, so that when I answered on that was to the question I took from that potential owner. On the, the one thing I caution, and I don't know the ordinance, but it's another reason to have the attorney and the building inspector involved in some of this is to be able to ensure that we have the legal precedent if in your situations that we are going to take action. And I don't know if that ordinance was crafted locally, if it mirrored another municipality's ordinance or not. Thankfully, we haven't had to venture there. Could potentially in the future on one or two, but so far we haven't had to utilize it.
I guess the only thing that bring that up is as we look down the road, this, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, that, creating and taking a more proactive stance in that regard will set us up better for future development. Things are changing for the better in downtown. And I think that, that to position ourselves in such a way that we can continue that growth and that new development, in a complete and cohesive way will set us up very well to continue the improvements to downtown. I mean, you look at the change down there from 2 years ago, and not even with just the infrastructure, but some of the work that people have put in, and it's remarkable. You put the infrastructure project and the improvements on top of that, and we really have created an incredible space down there, and to be able to set ourselves up to maintain that moving forward with the the maintenance and curation of our existing infrastructure downtown, I think would be something to and then as we get into the master plan, upgrade and doing that is really something to consider. I'm very excited. I didn't know about the master plan coming up. I'm excited
Yes.
about that.
Yeah.
Having been through the process 3 times.
Yeah. And I think, Trustee Holmes and I have had this conversation numerous times. It goes exactly with what Mr. Newman is talking about. We're in a position that first we have an obligation, I believe, from a staff perspective to our residents to make sure we're doing it right. Historically in Vicksburg, way too often, people were just allowed to, let's say, not have the most stringent of building site reviews or after a permit was issued, and we've inherited that problem. We've inherited, so we owe it to ourselves with the investment made downtown, the investment on the buildings where we can project this out to ensure that all the building owners are following up-to-date codes. The fire code change, and when a building changes hands, it changes. It's unfortunate, but quite often I still have to remind people that we're all governed by some of these rules. So, there's a lot of exciting things. Took a call today from a business located in another smaller community, and very charged up about coming to Vicksburg because of what they're seeing happening. So, is there any other questions on the grants, though? I'll get sidetracked.
No, I think it's an excellent program. I'm really looking forward to seeing this moving forward.
Yeah, this is Member Wortella. Just a couple of thoughts. This is an excellent program. We've been in favor of this, especially the amounts and the grant types. If you can, Jim, somebody is going to be coming for a $15,000 grant. They're not going to come in and say, I need 10 or 11 or 12. They're going to ask for one of these amounts, the $3,000, the $7,500, or the $15,000. And that amount of money may be a portion of the total project that they're looking at, if I'm assuming that correctly. And then the other item would be would the owner of the building or the person renting the building and running the business, either one of those entities could be part of the grant?
No, it'll be our staff recommendation that it is the owner of the building. So if they're leasing to someone, they would still be the one submitting the grant based on the needs of the leasee. Go ahead, Tanya, or
In the past, when we started doing grants, we allowed it to be the building owner or the leasee with the approval of the building owner.
yeah, I'm simply going to present it as staff. The reason why, and working with the attorney, one of the main reasons why is quite often historically, people might not go to fellow business owners that comprised the selection process on the DDA, but they would come to me thinking that the grants and opportunities were amongst the same individuals. And sometimes it went to building owners and leasees. So that was part of the motivating factor, as well as part to put the professional staff that would be paid to evaluate in combination with representatives of the DDA board on that evaluation committee that moves those grants forward.
Okay.
Just a final comment. Mr. Newman, I wasn't aware of that ordinance, and I'm glad you brought it out, because I do believe, I totally agree with your comments that, you know, if people are investing, we're investing in the community, then we should hold those standards as high as we can and enforce those standards to make sure that people, you know, are maintaining their buildings as they should be. Would love to address the issue of absentee landlords at another time, but that's another issue. Just final comment on this. Really, the carrot and the stick. My comment was this, or my thought was this. We're investing. We, the foundation, we're going to invest tens of thousands of dollars in the years to come, hundreds of thousands of dollars in incentivizing people to update buildings. It would seem to me that as a municipality, we would want to give some guidance as far as what that is. I mean, we could have something right next to something that just doesn't even coexist in a universe. And, no one likes the idea of being forced to do something, but if you've ever owned a business, if you've ever moved into it, you're told exactly what your signage would be, how it will look, where it's located. I just think that if we're going through this process of where we're going to be updating the master plan, and if we look at this economic revival in our community, I would hope that in 5 years we don't look at it and go, wow, we missed the boat on this one, guys, because if you look at all these buildings, we got a hodgepodge of a lot going on here, and unfortunately, we've invested in these buildings for people to make these improvements, and that's my only thought on this, is that if we're looking at, making changes to the master plan, that we would explore something like that.
I would speak to that real quick. There is currently a guideline. There are design guidelines from the DDA. They were developed in 2014, 2015. At the time that those were developed, the DDA as an individual entity did not, by its nature and structure, have an enforcement mechanism to require those design elements be enforced, in the DDA district. And I believe this is something that can be discussed down the road in working with the master plan and with the village attorney as we move this forward, to incorporate those design guidelines into more of an enforcement type structure as we move forward, so we have a cohesive, unified vision of what downtown should look like as we go forward. Because the planning commission, in conjunction with the village, will have we can create a mechanism for enforcement and oversight on those. as something that we did not have available before. And I think that's something that as we move with the new master plan, that those guidelines become, you know, for lack of a better term, codified into that document so that we do have something that we can reference and enforce.
Yeah, I think it'd go through that formal process because you can't enforce a guideline.
Correct. Yeah, and the DDA had no legal standing to enforce it anyway.
Could I ask another question? You know, the one building that's in such disrepair.
I hope that was the internet and not phone.
The one, not the one beside John, the one that's behind the, I think it was an attorney's office, I think it
Yeah.
was.
The gray building between the community center and Fredericks.
Yeah. I could, Chris, I don't know whether you know or not, but I still have an anesthesia brain and I can't think of words, but yeah, community center was the word I couldn't think of. Could we ask for that to be inspected for fire safety issues?
That was actually done a number of years ago. I think that was done before Mr. Mallory came on board, when Mr. Skippers was still village manager, and Steve Segwert, our former building inspector, actually did go in and inspect that building. I don't remember what the end result of that was, but that has been done. It's been a number of years since then.
Right, I remember when that was done, and if I remember correctly, because it was when I was, on the DDA, if I remember correctly, there were issues that were found. But I might be wrong with that, but, I mean, is that something we could request to be done again?
Yeah, I imagine any citizen can request it. I can tell you the buildings have been evaluated and issues that were found were corrected. I'm not going to speak to any specific building, but in general, all downtown buildings, including making sure that the buildings have the proper meter equivalents for utility usage and site plans are followed and that type of stuff as well.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions on grants? If not, Mr. Mallory, would you like to continue?
Sure. On streetscapes, again, continuing, we're looking at a good portion of downtown in the future. I say a good portion, maybe 25% of the flowers will be annual flowers that are downtown. Will utilize DDA revenue for those. We're looking at a possible in the next fiscal year, an additional table, possible additional cigarette butt discarding devices, as well as additional dog stations, both Prairie, Washington, Kalamazoo, and Main Street. The money listed in that account also includes the $9,000 of decorative fencing. That's a push forward amount due to the fact that we aren't going to have it installed until after July 1st. Under the Parks and Rec, to redo the boardwalk, stabilize the observation deck, as well as get the drainage, will be in excess of $15,000. So there'll be a combination of money that's used, but that is a project that we've identified that needs to be addressed in the 22-23 fiscal year, preferably in the fall of 22. The loan program would remain the same. It kind of gets a little confusing because we have grants in there. The loan program will put out in June when we have a running balance. That's a revolving fund. Will still. The one difference there is that we take those loans through the same evaluation committee, but those dollars, when they were originally provided by the Vicksburg Foundation, are actually for businesses located anywhere in village limits, not specific to the DDA. I don't want to confuse people, it's just two different programs. And then and I want to make sure I don't miss anything because my copy printed off on two sides. We always do, for, let's say, snow removal, the accounting services, now we'll add the clerk services. Instead of doing a percentage, which we do in other funds, we do a flat amount of $6,000, which we'll keep for the 22-23 fiscal year. There's two other, I'm hoping I'm going in an order you can follow. I'm moving to the page that has the Administrative Services Department at 15,750 and the Economic Development Department at 20,000. Those are the last two. The Administrative Services, we are gonna charge off $7,500 to the Director of Community Engagement out of the DDA funds with the amount of time that we have him concentrated on downtown. That's an additional item that hasn't been there in the past, as well as the $20,000 Economic Development Department. It's also going to contribute to the cost of some downtown events and festivals, which we're confident will bring people downtown, create economic development, economic investment by patrons visiting our businesses. Overall, we have carry forward money. I can get in the weeds if you want to. It's basically our projected estimate on a conservative of $63,000 of DDA tax capture revenue, $12,000 if the Vicksburg Foundation approves the grant facade, and then $145,000 that we'll have in commitment or assignments. We anticipate the bank balance being at that amount or higher come June 30th. We're also anticipating moving into January of '23 that we'll commit $100,000 of DDA money to the large downtown parking lot as we begin to save money for that project with an anticipated construction in the 25-26 fiscal year. But I'll answer any questions to any of those items.
Jim, if I might, for you. With the parking lot expansion and redoing that, with costs going up every year, would it be, and I don't want to get into the weeds here, would it be maybe prudent to reevaluate that and elevate it sooner, where we know kind of costs are? No, okay.
Because there's too many other projects
in the pipeline
have been prioritized before it, mainly being facilities for Village Hall. Right now, we're on today's dollars, it's anticipated to be a $700,000 project. Because of what's under the ground there, and there's other revenue sources that we're filling in. Of the 700, we hope by 25, 300,000 is saved up DDA money, and the rest of the funding will come from other sources.
Is that fund been established, or is this $100,000 going towards that kind of the beginning of that, or we have started saving money for that parking lot already?
Yeah, we started
a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, the first year you were on the council, and a part of that where we started to commit and assign money, I believe. But anyway, every January at the council level, we commit and assign money to future projects. So under our fund balance, we'd like to keep at least 30% unrestricted and reserve, in other money above that in kind of a savings plan for what projects identified.
Okay.
So it goes all the way down. We have numerous, every capital item, from a backhoe to Bobcat to police cruiser to weapon systems to large parking lots.
Yeah. Okay. It seemed that I remembered that we had been already setting aside money for that in there, just to make sure that we are continuing to do that. And yeah, with everything going up, but the longer it takes, the bigger that number is going to get.
Yeah, our goal on that is still to always pay cash. If it takes an extra year to save money
do
that
so.
we're paying cash, that's what we'll do.
Thank you. Further questions for Manager Mallory?
I just have one comment, and I really want to thank you for, Jim, for all of the things that you're doing to make our village so much more fiscally able to take care of the things that come up, unexpected, unknown, that we have the cash to be able to take care of those things. And I want to thank you for putting us in that position.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. That's actually a good segue to member comments. So I'll
Well,
actually
that'll be my member comment then.
like to echo her comments as well, Jim. We do appreciate what you've done and continue to do for the village. So. Other member comments? See none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will make that motion to adjourn.
Wortella, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed? Meeting adjourned.